Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the 7 Resorts in 7 Days series. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends Charles Boda.
Hello.
And Mr. Tyler Crouch.
Hi, everyone.
And today we are going to talk about Port Orleans French Quarter over at, Port Orleans. This was the only one, because I was exhausted. I had to take a break. This was the only one I was not at. I did the other 6. This one I did not do. This was Charles and Tyler. Charles was actually spent the night there with his girlfriend, Michelle. And Tyler was tagging along for everything up to staying in the room, because that would have been weird. I told Charles wanted to vlog it, and I said, no, we don't need that. Of course, Port Orleans French Quarter is a New Orleans-themed moderate resort, and I am not fully prepared here because I do not have French Quarter. New Orleans-themed moderate resort, and I was able to get the Florida Resident Spring into 2018 room offer when we booked this late January. It was a Tuesday in January. $173 a night. $173 a night. Just kind of bearing that in mind as we compare it to what we paid at Coronado Springs, which was $152.
Yeah, which is kind of insane when you think about it. You'll have to go and you'll have to wait for the Coronado Springs to come out, but
we don't know. Maybe it's already out yet. We don't know what order these are going up in yet, so we're pre-recording, obviously. So, all right. So, talk to me about your experience. What'd you think?
Okay. There were a couple marks lost as far as the food court. It didn't wow me. Everything else, though, from the second you come in, engaging cast members, really making the experience fun, and just a beautiful aesthetic. One of the things I like to do when I'm staying at a place is on my downtime, I want to walk around. I want to take in my surrounding and stuff. Rooms are nice, but for me, part of the whole resort immersion thing is the aesthetics and the little, the street aspect of it. The being in a little New Orleans street, tiny walkways resembling streets and alleys, and then looking up the buildings around you. And I don't want to go too heavy on this, but it is adjacent. It's attached to Riverside. And so when you stay at one, if you're walking around, you get both of those. So I like the variation between almost like being in the same place while I'm walking around and getting the rural southern theme and walking into a city and getting that. It made it really, really fun for me. And I just, a lot of the time, just spent walking around and taking photos and everything. Just killing time was beautiful. I really, really enjoyed that. But, one of the things I really just noticed was the cast members were all absolutely great. From check-in, just to start, we got this guy who checked us in, Rich. And Rich was absolutely amazing. He was one of those guys where I know he was polished and he had his lines, but he was so quick, it was almost hard to keep up. You were laughing at something he said and he slid in something else right after it. But it wasn't it didn't feel canned or anything like that. He was, talking and asking questions and everything like that. So, every person I passed, kind of that Southern charm aspect, which is more of the immersion, but also just, a good Disney flair is everybody you passed, every cast member, they at least they nodded and smiled, but oftentimes they would sit there and they would say something, or they'd, engage you a little bit. And I like that. It makes you feel special. It makes you feel like they actually care about you. And so, I just love that. The room, it was very comfortable. It was very fun. It was clean. It was well kept up and everything. But for me, I spent more time outside. I spent more time walking around and everything. The room was very nice, but I kind of wanted to be out in that area. I kind of wanted to soak all of that charm in. And, it's got charm to spare. I can't say enough about the aesthetic there. I was comfortable. I was relaxed, but there's something to look at around it a lot. And my girlfriend Michelle stayed with me, and she's actually from Louisiana, and she lived in New Orleans for a few years. And so I was kind of wondering how whether she be like overly critical or anything, I kind of coached her as like, it's not going to be exactly New Orleans, but it's trying to capture the theme and the spirit and the feel. And she loved the place. I was surprised. She really, really enjoyed it. It's cleaner, obviously, than a city street in New Orleans and everything. But as far as trying to get that aesthetic as much as you can in Florida, they did a pretty decent job. So I just enjoyed my entire time there.
One of the things that's very striking whenever we do the 7 and 7 series is when you see the difference between the cast member experiences at the different resorts. Because remember now, this is all owned by the same company. These are all resorts at the same vacation destination. These are all Walt Disney World resorts. And, we haven't yet, as of right now, we haven't recorded the Riverside review. But when we get to that, our check-in experience was somewhat different.
Yeah.
At Riverside. And these are both under the same general manager. The same guy runs both these resorts. Did you find all the cast members? Let me ask you this, Tyler. In interacting with cast members, be it in the food court or wherever, did you find they were all kind of like Rich?
Nobody's like Rich. Rich is his own beast. He was amazing. I think he was probably the best cast member that we found the entire time. I'm not saying that anybody was bad or unpleasant, but especially when I think of some of the other experiences we had on this whole 7 and 7 thing. They were all great, but I'm not going to say I was blown away by anybody really but Rich.
Okay, so Rich was kind of like...
He was the standout to me, but I think they were all fantastic people.
Well,
And
one, like I said, this is its own thing, and I don't want to contrast it. I don't want the entire review to be contrasting it with Riverside, but they're sister resorts, they're adjacent, and so you would expect everything to be similar, and not
at least in terms of that.
Yeah, and not just like the standout guys like Rich or anything like that, but also in just the walking by random cast members. The dynamic there, sitting there smiling and, like nodding the head and saying hello and asking how your time is doing. I found way more of that while walking around in French Quarter than I did in Riverside. There was a noticeable difference. They weren't bad in Riverside by any means.
They were professional, but they weren't like
above and beyond. No.
What you look for at a Disney resort, that Disney, quote unquote, Disney service is that, overly friendly, helpful, professional, genuine. That's really what sets, when they're doing it right, that's what sets them apart. So it seems like that was going on at French Quarter.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Without a doubt. I enjoyed everybody there. I just think Rich was so amazing that it was like, wow, this guy is incredible. That was my thing. But everybody was nice,
And now talk to me about the food court. You said that there were some misses with the food court.
Yeah. It's very similar to Riverside's. It's a food court. It's got a build your own pasta bar. It's got it's got New Orleans themed kind of Cajun cuisine. So you're looking at muffulettas, muffaletta, yeah, and gumbo and jambalaya and stuff, and it's all right, but I had probably 3 meals there, and the most I can say is I was kind of satisfied with one of them. I don't feel like like I was robbed or anything like that, but I definitely wasn't impressed to the level that I have been at certain other resorts. So
out of all the meals I've had at different resorts throughout this week, it's actually my least favorite lunch that we've had. It was for me. I don't want to get too into specifics, but I got a chicken on a biscuit sandwich, and I figured it would be something. The picture described to me something that it wasn't, and I guess maybe that was my fault. I don't really know I didn't know what voodoo sauce was at the time, so maybe that's my problem. But
what is voodoo sauce?
It's a sweet kind of New Orleans sauce. I don't know. They put it on chicken. I guess that's what's on voodoo sticky pig wings. I don't know. But anyway, it was not pleasant. It just wasn't. It was this the bread the biscuit wasn't good. It just wasn't pleasant, you know. And I think they recently redid the food court, so it is one thing to note that the plates, the silverware and everything, as compared to I know we keep saying we don't mean to keep comparing, but it is like real silverware, and that's kind of a nice touch. And I appreciate that because most of the resorts aren't like that. So,
but even then, in comparison, they're very similar places, but this one kind of drops the ball in a lot of stuff.
Right.
And it's not overpriced by any means. But the one thing, and I expected more out of it because I'd had their gumbo before, and it's decent gumbo if you're getting like a $4 cup of gumbo. And, you know, Michelle is a chef and from New Orleans. So, like, before taking her here, I just, you know, like, stipulate, okay, now this isn't gumbo. This is $4 theme park resort gumbo. So, like, don't judge based on that and everything. But I think she got like a shrimp po' boy or something like that. And very, very, even for the price, very unsatisfied. And I myself, you know, I'd eaten there before, and the gumbo's all right for, you know, $4. Maybe not as traditional or authentic or anything, but everything else, it's not that it's incredibly overpriced because the prices don't run super high, but it's just I couldn't really find that much that was satisfying there. And I tried quite a few times to like get one of those, you know, hidden gems, you know, like the shining star of, okay, well, I'll eat this and this will be their signature. But there really wasn't anything there that like really satisfied me. So.
I think it's worth noting too that like the timing was real weird, and maybe it's because, you know, I definitely know I chose, like, out of all the different bays, I definitely chose the one that was the most busy, but Charles got his food immediately, and then he had to wait for me for like, I don't know, 7-8 minutes while I was waiting for my food. So, you know, that's something to think about and try, and if you have your whole family there, you know, maybe look for the most crowded one, order your food there first so that everybody's not just standing in the middle of the food court getting their food cold, you know. But
if you are eating there, one thing I might recommend, because I'm running under the assumption that it's the exact same as Riverside's, is the Build Your Own Pasta Bar, which I did not try it in French Quarter, but it's advertised as the exact same as Riverside's. And when I tried it there, I was happy with that. So if they do it the same way, then that Build Your Own Pasta Bar is pretty flavor value for your money, I think, is a good call. But so it's probably a safe bet, at least. So
I think going back to one of the things you said in the very beginning, too, is that one of the pluses of French Quarter is Riverside is right there. So if you want to have that Riverside food court experience, it is not that far. So,
and one of the genius parts about that too is that if you stay at either one of the resorts, make sure to check both resorts' entertainment list, because everything is within walking distance. So, you know, for instance, they have a movie Under the Stars thing, which is all week at Riverside. And it's a couple days at French Quarter. So if it's
not every day at French Quarter.
No, it's 2 days. But it's like a 30-second walk to Riverside's outdoor movie thing. So if you don't have it at French Quarter, you can walk, and that's also true in reverse. So if you check both resorts, everything is within walking distance, and it's a nice, fun little walk. So make sure to check all of the entertainment lists and go back and forth between whatever you want to hit on the time that you have off, or the days that you want to kind of chill out and relax.
Go ahead.
No,
I was also going to say just one of the final things that really impresses me about French Quarter was the pool. I mean, the pool was kind of like one of those things that was like from afar you see it and you're like, oh wow, I kind of want to go check that out, you know, because it has beautiful theming it has all these kind of like alligators that kind of, I don't know if they are the ones from Fantasia, but they sure remind me of the ones from Fantasia, and they're all playing instruments. They're doing like their own parade, their own, you know, French Quarter New Orleans parade, and they have this big giant serpent in the water that is actually a slide for the kids and everything. So I think it's actually one of the cooler pools on, you know, as far as the resorts go.
It is.
Yeah.
When I was waiting on a text to tell me whether the room was ready, and when I first got there, I hadn't gotten it yet. So I'm like, where can I hang out? What can I do? And so nobody was there yet, and I just walked over to the pool, took my shirt off to get a tan, took out a book that I had in my backpack, Dostoevsky, Notes from the Underground, and then...
As you do with the pool.
and just like sat there and read. And once again, like the cast members were all really cool, but I feel bad for the cast members that kind of do the parties and hype everything up, the like pool DJ, when there are 3 people at the pool.
It's true.
Yeah, it's just odd. It's like, hey, everybody, it's like 1 o'clock and we're going to get things started. Everybody's at the parks. There are like 3 people just silently nodding at them. Yes,
but they've got to do it.
Let's get the party started.
Yeah. It was cold that day too. It was so cold. They have also a playground, a water playground for kids right next to the pool. And it got so cold at a certain point they just turned that thing off. They're like, shut it down. What do we have this on for?
So at $173 for the night, was that room worth it?
I would say so. Yeah, I haven't talked a lot about the room specifically, but I enjoyed it. But once again, comparing the two, I liked this one a bit better, but it was comfortable. The resort itself is fun to be around. Food options are a slight limit for me, but yeah, I had a great time. I really did. So, I personally prefer this resort to stay at.
Well, Tyler, you got a chance to see more of the rooms on this trip than Charles did. Mm-hmm. Do you think, because when we first talked about the price and Coronado Springs we got for a little over $150.
See, it's funny because context is like what really matters here, because when you tell me the price by itself, I go, hey, that's a pretty good price, $173, mm-hmm. Not bad. But then I think about a lot of the 7 and 7s we've been doing, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's not actually the best.
I mean, we're comparing apples to apples. When we talk about Port Orleans, Riverside, mm-hmm. French Quarter, and Coronado Springs, all moderate resorts.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm starting to think that the level of value is changing. Well, I'm not starting to think. I'm thinking the level of value is changing now.
I also see that look, Port Orleans, Riverside, without question, I think, especially right now with Caribbean Beach pretty much under construction, Port Orleans, Riverside, the most popular moderate resort, certainly, mm-hmm. among the most popular of all the resorts at Disney World. And when we get into that one, price point for that was north of $200. Using the same discount, and this was just for the night before, okay? Using the same discount, but Disney, like all hotels, all resorts, they yield their rates. The higher their occupancy goes, the higher the rate goes on the mm-hmm. remaining rooms. So I find it interesting. Coronado Springs at $152, Port Orleans French Quarter at $173, and Riverside at $208.
Wow.
And these were all within days of each other. So we're not talking about big. And, I'm going to tell you right now, from my standpoint, I was not at French Quarter with you. I didn't see the room. So I really can't say to that. But I will tell you, based on this, mm-hmm. for me, value for money spent, hands down, is Coronado.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Now, without getting too far off topic, I wonder if the price is so low at Coronado just because of the construction right now. Maybe they think they can't get away with it.
Again, they're going to yield that rate based on availability.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
if they're at 85% occupancy, that rate's going to be going up.
True.
Now, maybe the construction is scaring people off. That's why occupancy is low. I don't know. But there was a convention in-house when we were there. So I don't want to talk too much more about Coronado. But I think that's an important point to bring up, is what the price point is and why you should always look, unless you are just married, that's the resort you have to stay at. Mm-hmm. You should always be looking at the other moderates, because there are other factors that can weigh in. And, we're talking $20 a night for a 6-night vacation. That's a few meals. And, depending on where you go, it could be a lot of meals. But so that's why I wanted to bring that up. But overall, French Quarter.
Yeah, it really is a nice hotel. I recommend it wholeheartedly. I think it's one of the nicest themes, even down to the plants. Like the plants that are there and everything are just spot on, and it's just a relaxing place. So
yeah, that's the diversity of the foliage there at both of them actually, but especially at French Quarter, it's really, really neat to look at. They have, depending on It's Florida. I don't know plants. I have no idea what exactly those plants are, or how often they bloom in Florida, or anything like that. Can't advise you on when it's nice. But
the point is it feels like it's supposed to. Though.
Yeah, exactly. They do a good job in setting that feeling and setting that dynamic and having that little garden view aspect to it. It makes it relaxing, and there's a little bit of eye-catching to it. You want to be immersed. You want to be entertained as you go around. And turning a corner and catching those views is really, really nice. So,
So, all right. Well, there you have it. That's our take on Disney's Port Orleans French Quarter as part of our 7 Resorts in 7 Days series. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for being with us.